Joshua Harlan had never been good at beginnings. Born and raised in the flat, unforgiving sprawl of Springfield, Illinois, where cornfields stretched like endless regrets under skies that promised blue but delivered gray, he'd learned early that life didn't hand you second chances. At 22, he was still crashing on his cousin's lumpy couch in a duplex off Dirksen Parkway, dodging collection calls for a student loan he couldn't repay because community college had spit him out 2 years back with a half-assed associate's in graphic design and zero prospects. His days blurred into night shifts at the Quick Mart, ringing up lotto tickets for dreamers who looked at him like he was one bad decision from joining their ranks. Driving? That was supposed to fix it. Get a license, snag a delivery gig, maybe even escape this town that clung to him like humidity in July. But lessons with Alex Rivera were turning into something else entirely. Alex wasn't like the other instructors at Windy City Wheels, those chain-smoking relics who droned about right-of-ways like they were reciting the Constitution. At 35, Alex was all sharp edges and quiet intensity, with a faded tattoo of a compass rose peeking from his collar and a laugh that rumbled like thunder over Lake Michigan. He'd moved down from Chicago 5 years ago, or so the gossip went, after some family drama that no one dared unpack. Joshua had signed up for the 10-session package on a whim, funded by a scratch-off win that felt like fate. First lesson, Alex slid into the passenger seat of the ancient Honda Civic, clapped Joshua on the shoulder, and said, "All right, kid, show me what you've got. No judgments here." That kid stuck in Joshua's craw like a bad burrito, but Alex said it with a grin that softened the blow, like he knew it chafed but believed in him anyway. And damn if Joshua didn't want to believe it too. By session 3, they were navigating the backroads past Abraham Lincoln's tomb, Alex's voice a steady anchor as Joshua white-knuckled the wheel through his first panic attack. "Breathe with me, Josh. In for 4, out for 6. You're not alone in this." The way Alex said his name, not the full Joshua, but Josh, clipped and familiar, sent a shiver down his spine that had nothing to do with the AC blasting against the summer heat. It started small, those shivers. A brush of knuckles when handing over the keys. A lingering glance in the rear view as they idled at a stoplight, Alex's eyes crinkling with that half-smile that made Joshua's stomach flip like he'd hit a pothole. Joshua wasn't blind. He'd known he was gay since high school, back when he'd crush on the quarterback while the other guys catcalled cheerleaders. But admitting it? In Springfield? That was a one-way ticket to whispers and side eyes, or worse, his uncle's Bible-thumping sermons about fire and brimstone. So he buried it, deep as the Mississippi mud, and focused on the road. Until the accident. The wreck happened on session 7, midway through a loop on I-55 southbound, the kind of highway that lulled you into complacency with its straight-shot monotony. Thunderheads had rolled in from the west, turning the sky bruise purple, and Joshua's hands were already slick on the wheel. "Eyes on the lines, Josh," Alex coached, but his voice was tight, sensing the tremor in Joshua's foot on the gas. Then the semi loomed, a behemoth hydroplaning on the wet asphalt, veering into their lane like a drunk stumbling home. Joshua froze, muscles locked, mind screaming fragments of every failure. The job he lost for showing up late, the ex who ghosted him after one too many, maybe later, texts, the dad who bailed when he was 10 and never looked back. Alex didn't hesitate. His left hand gripped the wheel, yanking hard. His right clamped Joshua's thigh, not gentle, but grounding, a lifeline in the skid. Tires screeched, gravel bit, and they spun into the median, a controlled chaos that ended with the Civic's nose kissing a guardrail and the semi jackknifing harmlessly past. Silence crashed in after the roar, broken only by the relentless patter of rain and Joshua's ragged sobs. I can't do this," he gasped, head bowed against the horn that blared faintly under his forehead. "You just did," Alex shot back, unbuckling with a wince, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead where he'd head-butt the dash. He killed the engine, popped the hood for a quick check, then hauled Joshua out into the deluge. They huddled under the overpass a quarter-mile hike away, soaked to the bone, sharing a smoke from Alex's crumpled pack. Joshua's teeth chattered, not from cold, but from the aftershock, the bone-deep terror of almost ending it all because he couldn't steer straight. "Why'd you do that?" he mumbled, exhaling smoke that curled like ghosts in the wind. "Pull us out like that. You could have let me." "Shut up," Alex growled, but there was no heat in it. He stubbed out his cigarette, turned Joshua by the shoulders to face him. Water streamed down Alex's face, plastering his dark hair to his temples. And in that moment, under the sodium glow of a distant street lamp, Joshua saw him. Not the unflappable instructor, but a man frayed at the edges, haunted by his own storms. Because you're worth pulling out for, Josh. Don't you get that yet? The tow truck arrived before Joshua could respond, and the ER after that was a blur of forms and fentanyl-laced cotton swabs. Minor cuts, a mild concussion for Joshua, bruises blooming like ink on Alex's ribs from the seatbelt. They discharged him with a script for Ativan and a stern warning about anxiety behind the wheel. Alex drove them back in his pickup, a beat-up Ford F-150 with a cracked dashboard and a playlist of Springsteen ballads. Joshua shotgun, staring at the stitches on Alex's knuckles like they were a map to forgiveness. "Crash at my place tonight," Alex said as they pulled up to the duplex. "No arguments. Your cousin's got that flea-infested couch, and you're not riding solo after this shit show." Joshua nodded numbly, too wrecked to protest. Alex's apartment was on the second floor of a brick walk-up near Washington Park. Spartan, lived in, with scuffed hardwood and posters of Route 66 diners taped crooked on the walls. A single Coors Light from the fridge, and they collapsed on the couch, some cop procedural flickering ignored on the TV. Halfway through a commercial for truck insurance, irony at its cruelest, Joshua's guard cracked. "I almost killed you," he whispered, voice thick. "What kind of idiot can't even learn to drive without turning it into a demolition derby?" Alex shifted, his thigh pressing warm against Joshua's in the dim lamplight. "The kind who's carrying too much weight alone." He hesitated, then, "Look, I've been there. Chicago wasn't all jazz and deep dish. Lost my brother to a rig like that one, drunk driver, black ice. Thought I'd never touch a wheel again." His confession hung heavy. A bridge Joshua hadn't known was missing. They talked then, really talked, until the sky lightened to pearl outside the blinds. About Joshua's dead-end job, the art sketches he hid in a shoebox under the bed, the ache of loving in secret. About Alex's escape from a family that called his queerness a phase, the ink on his skin a reminder to always find true north. By dawn, the space between them had shrunk to inches, breaths sinking in the quiet. Alex's hand found Joshua's nape, thumb tracing the curl of hair there, and Joshua leaned in, not crashing, but landing soft. Their kiss was tentative at first, tasting of salt and second chances, then deepening with the urgency of men who danced too close to the edge. Hands roamed, shirts shed in a tangle on the floor, bodies mapping each other like uncharted roads. It wasn't fireworks. It was a slow burn, the kind that warms you from the inside out after a lifetime in the cold. They woke tangled in Alex's unmade bed, sunlight slanting through the blinds like a benediction. Joshua traced the scar on Alex's collarbone, a memento from a bar fight in Wrigleyville, and felt, for the first time, like he might just make it. Lessons resumed the next week, but now the Civic felt less like a cage and more like freedom. They'd steal kisses in the parking lot, Alex's truck a sanctuary for hurried lunches of gas station subs and whispered plans. "Ever thought about Chicago?" Alex asked one afternoon, as they cruised past the state capitol, its dome gleaming like fool's gold. "Real cities got real jobs for artists like you." Joshua laughed, but the seed took root. For the first time, the road ahead didn't scare him. It beckoned. Fall crept into Springfield like an uninvited guest, turning the leaves to fire and the air crisp with the promise of change. Joshua's eighth lesson blurred into dates that felt stolen. Picnics by the Sangamon River with thermoses of spiked cider. Late-night drives to the edge of town where they'd park and lose themselves in the back seat, fogging the windows with breaths that spoke of futures neither dared name yet. Alex was a revelation. Patient where Joshua's past lovers had been fleeting, fierce in his affections like a man who'd learned love the hard way. He'd cook carnitas from scratch on Sundays, his hips swaying to Bad Bunny on the Bluetooth speaker, pulling Joshua into dances that ended with laughter and lovemaking on the kitchen tile. "Your trouble, you know that?" Joshua teased one evening, sprawled naked on Alex's bed, sheets twisted around his waist like a truce flag. Alex hovered in the doorway, towel slung low, his gaze lingering on the constellation of freckles across Joshua's chest. "Only the good kind," Alex replied, crossing the room to drop a kiss on Joshua's knee. But there was a shadow in his eyes, a hesitation that Joshua chalked up to the ghosts they both carried. Alex rarely talked about his family anymore, deflecting with jokes about his mom's tamales or his sister's endless wedding drama. Joshua didn't push. He'd learned early that love meant respecting silences, even the ones that echoed. The ninth lesson was a milestone. Highway merging, the beast Joshua had dreaded since the wreck. They hit I, 72 eastbound at rush hour, semis rumbling like beasts in migration. Joshua's pulse jackhammered, palms sweating the faux leather wheel. "You've got this," Alex murmured, his hand a steady weight on Joshua's thigh. "Signal, check blind, ease in," like sliding into home plate. The merge went smooth, glory in the grind of asphalt. And when they pulled off at the next exit, Joshua hooped, punching the air like a kid. Alex grinned, wild and proud, and yanked him across the console for a kiss that tasted like victory. "Told you, you're a natural." That high carried them through the test the following Tuesday. Joshua passed with a 92, the DMV clerk sliding over the temporary paper permit like it was the keys to the kingdom. He called Alex from the parking lot, voice cracking. "I did it. Holy shit, I did it." Alex was there in 20 minutes, sweeping him into a bear hug that lifted him off his boots. "Proud of you, Josh. So damn proud." To celebrate, they drove to Peoria, Joshua behind the wheel of the F-150 for the first time solo-ish, Alex shotgun with a cooler of beers and a playlist heavy on Tom Petty anthems. The river city glittered under a harvest moon, its levees lined with food trucks slinging funnel cakes and craft brews. They wandered hand in hidden hand, stealing touches in the crowd, until the ache built too fierce and they tumbled into a no-tell-motel off the interstate. Neon, vacancy, buzzing like a heartbeat. That night, barriers crumbled. Joshua confessed the shoebox sketches, bold, queer visions of men entwined in urban grit, colors bleeding like emotions unchecked. Alex pored over them by lamplight, his fingers reverent on the pages. "These are killer, man. You could sell 'em. Hell, exhibit 'em." Joshua flushed, mumbling excuses about not being ready, but Alex's belief was a balm, soothing the scars of rejection from art school scouts who'd eyed his portfolio like it was contraband. In turn, Alex opened up about the compass tattoo, inked after his brother's funeral, a vow to navigate away from the wreckage of his old life. "Dad called me a disgrace when I came out. Mom just cried. Chicago was my out, teaching driving to pay the rent, pretending I was whole." He traced Joshua's jaw, voice rough. "You make me feel like I am." Their rhythm deepened, a syncopated beat against the world's off-kilter tempo. Joshua landed a freelance gig designing logos for a local brewery, the paycheck buying him a proper easel and a duffel for Alex's closet. They talked Chicago more, lofts in Wicker Park, gallery crawls in Pilsen, a life where holding hands wasn't a risk calculation. "Come with me," Joshua said one frost-kissed morning, snow flurrying like confetti outside the window. "When I go." Alex's smile faltered, just a flicker, before he pulled Joshua close. "Yeah, when you go." But cracks spiderwebbed in, subtle as frost on glass. Alex's phone buzzed more at odd hours. Text from Carlos. Curt replies that Alex deleted mid-sentence. Joshua caught him once, staring at a photo on his lock screen. A younger Alex, arms slung around a broad-shouldered guy with the same easy grin, captioned, "Brothers Forever," in faded pixels. "Old college buddy," Alex explained, too quick, pocketing it like contraband. Joshua nodded, but doubt seeded, a thorn in the bloom. Then came the family call. Alex's mom, voice tinny through the speaker on Thanksgiving Eve, her Spanish laced with worry. Joshua hovered in the kitchen, pretending to chop onions for empanadas, but ears pricked at fragments. "Tu padre. Enfermo. Vuelve a casa." Alex's face drained of color, jaw set like concrete. He hung up after assurances he couldn't keep, then vanished into the bedroom for an hour. When he emerged, eyes red-rimmed, he forced a smile. "Dad's sick. Cologne thing. Thinks it's nothing, but..." "Yeah." Joshua enveloped him, murmuring comforts he'd once craved himself. "Go see him. Family's messy, but it's yours." Alex clung tighter, whispering thanks that sounded like please. The next day, he drove north, 8 hours to a suburb outside Milwaukee, where his parents' split-level waited like a time capsule of resentments. Joshua stayed behind, sketching Alex's profile from memory, the strong line of his nose, the vulnerability in his parted lips. Alex returned 2 days later, hollowed out, bearing Tupperware of arroz con pollo and a story stitched with half-truths. "He's stable. Chemo starts next week." But the shadow lingered, darkening the holidays. Christmas Eve, they strung lights on Alex's sad little tree, sipping eggnog spiked with rum, but Alex's laughs rang forced, his touches distracted. Joshua pressed once, gently. "Talk to me. Whatever it is." "It's nothing," Alex lied, pulling away to fiddle with the ornaments. "Just holiday blues." New Year's dawned brittle, resolutions whispered in the dark, more sketches for Joshua, more honesty for them both. But January brought the storm, not weather, but human. Joshua's freelance dried up, the brewery folding under craft beer saturation, leaving him scraping pennies for rent. He confided in Alex over takeout lo mein, vulnerability raw. What if I'm just not enough? For the city, for us. Alex's response was fire. You're everything, Josh. We'll figure it. That night, they made love with desperate edge, bodies colliding like waves on breakwater, chasing oblivion. Yet the buzzes persisted. Carlos again, now calls that Alex took in the bathroom, voice low and urgent. Joshua stewed, jealousy a low simmer, until one snowy afternoon, curiosity won. He scrolled Alex's phone while he showered. Wrong, he knew, but love makes thieves of us all. The texts gutted him. Miss you, babe. When you coming back? Dad's asking about the wedding. Wedding? To Elena? No. Carlos, the lock screen ghost, wasn't a bro. He was the fiancé Alex had left in Chicago, the family drama, unpacked as a panicked flight from commitment after his coming out imploded everything. Betrayal hit like whiplash, sharper than any skid. Joshua dressed numbly, left a note, need air, call me when you're done lying, and fled into the blizzard, boots crunching virgin snow toward the river. His phone lit up with missed calls, but he silenced it, tears freezing on his lashes. How could he not see? The hesitations, the shadows, they were signposts to a truth Alex had buried deeper than Joshua's own secrets. He ended up at the Quick Mart, clocking in for an emergency shift, the fluorescent hum a mocking lullaby. Customers blurred, drunks seeking smokes, moms with formula runs, but inside, Joshua fractured. Love, he'd thought, was the road out. Turns out, it was just another detour. February clawed in with winds that howled like accusations, stripping Springfield bare and leaving Joshua exposed. He crashed back at his cousin's, the lumpy couch a penance for his naivety, sketching furiously in the margins of napkins to drown the echo of Alex's unanswered voicemails. Josh, please. Let me explain. Delete. I never meant to hurt you. Block. The betrayal festered, a poison oak itch under his skin. How many nights had they shared, bodies and breaths intertwined, while Alex harbored this ghost fiancé? Carlos, with his easy grins and shared history, the man who'd stuck when Joshua's family hadn't even started. Work at the Quick Mart became his anchor, the registers beep a metronome to his unraveling. He'd nod through small talk. Cold enough for you? While his mind replayed the lies, the old buddy deflection, the family call that masked a summons home to mend fences, not just with parents, but with the life Alex had fled. Joshua Googled it one graveyard shift, fingers flying over the sticky keyboard. Carlos Mendoza, event planner in Logan Square, social media a parade of brunches and beach volleyball. Alex tagged in throwbacks with heart emojis. The final gut punch, a proposal photo from last spring, Alex on one knee in Grant Park, cherry blossoms framing his smile. Forever starts now, the caption read, but forever had detoured south, crashing into Joshua's life like that semi on I-55. He avoided Alex's routes, the driving school lot, the park benches by the river, but Springfield was a fishbowl, and fate has a cruel sense of humor. They collided at the farmer's market on a brittle Saturday, stalls hawking squash and cider under gray skies. Joshua was fingering a jar of local honey, debating calories he couldn't afford, when Alex's voice sliced through. Josh. He froze, jar slipping to shatter on the cobblestones, sweet stickiness spreading like spilled trust. Alex stood there, bundled in a wool pea coat, eyes shadowed with the weight of weeks unspoken. 5 minutes. Please. Joshua's laugh was bitter frost. You had 10 sessions. Blew it in one lie. But he followed anyway, to a bench overlooking the frozen river, where Canada geese hunkered like feathered refugees. Words tumbled then. Alex's confession a dam break. The proposal a panic move, pressured by Carlos's ultimatum after Alex's dad outed him at a family barbecue. Fix this, or you're no son of mine. The ring accepted in a haze of guilt, the drive south a coward's escape. Teaching was my reset. Then you. God. Josh, you woke me up. Made me want real, not this half-life charade. Joshua's chest ached, torn between fury and the pull of those blue eyes, pleading like a man on the ledge. Real? You let me fall for you while planning a wedding? That's not love, Alex. That's a pit stop. Alex recoiled as if slapped, but nodded, tears carving tracks in the chill. You're right. I fucked up. But Carlos. We called it off. Last month, after Mom's call dragged me back. Told him the truth. I'm in love with someone else. With you. The admission hung, a lifeline or a noose. Joshua wanted to believe it, to bridge the chasm with forgiveness, but doubt was a stubborn weed. "Prove it," he whispered, standing abrupt. "No more half-truths. All in, or nothing." Alex's nod was solemn, a vow etched in the snow-dusted air. They parted tentative, a fragile détente, but the rift lingered, widening with every unanswered text from Carlos. "We need to talk," that Alex showed Joshua now, transparent as glass. Reconciliation crept slow. Coffee at a dive on 6th Street, where Alex laid bare his journals, pages of doubt-scrawled poetry about loving in the margins, Joshua's name inked like a talisman. Dates rebuilt, cautious as new drivers. Walks in Washington Park, where Alex sketched caricatures of passers-by, his artist's hand rediscovering joy through Joshua's lens. Spring teased with thaws, mud season turning roads to slurry, mirroring the mess of their mending. Joshua's art bloomed under the tending. A local gallery scout spotted his quick mart doodles, left on a receipt, of all places, and offered a solo show in June. Queer Visions, Midwest Heart. The theme, bold strokes of men in quiet rebellion against cornfield conformity. Alex was there for every late-night canvas session, take-out pizza grease on his fingers as he mixed paints, his pride a steady flame. But harmony's a jealous lover, and conflict brewed darker. Carlos arrived unannounced in late April, rolling into Springfield in a rented Prius like a specter from Alex's past. Joshua answered the door, Alex out on an errand, to a man polished as a LinkedIn profile. Pressed chinos, cologne sharp as regret, smile practiced for boardrooms. "You must be the detour," Carlos said, not unkind, but laced with possession. He pushed past, settling on the couch like he owned it, photos spilling from a manila envelope. Alex and him at pride parades, family Christmases, a life woven tight before Joshua's thread snagged it. "He's confused, you know," Carlos said, voice smooth as aged whiskey. "Running from commitment, from us. But blood calls him back. His dad's chemo's rough. Alex promised to stand by me through it. For the family. Lies. Truths?" The line blurred, Carlos's eyes holding a mirror to Joshua's fears. The outsider, the fling, the boy from nowhere who couldn't compete with history. Alex returned to pandemonium, voices raised, envelope contents strewn like shrapnel. "What the hell, Carl?" he roared, face thunderous. Carlos stood calm, the envelope a gauntlet. "Your mom called. Dad's taken a turn. We leave tomorrow, for good, or you lose everything." The ultimatum cracked the air, a seismic fault. Alex's gaze flicked to Joshua, pleading silent for anchors, but the pull of duty, of the father who disowned him yet dangled reconciliation like bait, was tidal. "Josh, I have to go, just for a bit, to sort this." Joshua's heart splintered, shards embedding deep. "Sort it, or choose." He grabbed his coat, storming into the rain-lashed night, the gallery show a distant dream now tainted by this farce. He drove, his own beater Civic, license gleaming in the glove box, aimless loops through town, wipers slashing tears from the windshield. Hours later, he crashed at a motel, phone dead to the world, waking to texts, Alex begging, Carlos smug, he always comes home. The High Point crashed into abyss. Joshua skipped the show prep, holding up with bourbon and blank canvases, his art curdled to rage-fueled abstracts, lovers torn by barbed wire, roads forking into voids. Alex's calls went to voicemail, his absence a vacuum sucking light from days. Whispers reached Joshua at the mart. Alex spotted with Carlos at a diner, arms slung casual, like old times. Betrayal redux, sharper for the hope it had nursed. Climax brewed on show night, gallery aglow with string lights and wine-sipping locals. Joshua's pieces hung like confessions. He stood numb by the entrance, suit ill-fitting, when Alex burst in, disheveled, eyes wild, Carlos nowhere in tow. "I chose," Alex gasped, seizing Joshua's hands amid stares. "Told them everything. Dad raged, Mom wept, but Carlos, he's gone. For real. Proof, a text screenshot, Carlos's farewell, hurt, but free. Be happy." The crowd blurred as they collided, kiss fierce and public, defiance in every press of lips. But joy's fragile, whispers followed, family backlash brewing, Alex's job at risk from small-town tongues. Yet in that moment, under the gallery's halo, they stood unbroken, love a rebellion carved in color and claim. Summer unfurled in Springfield like a hard-won pardon, humid nights alive with cicada symphonies and fireflies winking conspiratorially from the fields. The gallery show had been a quiet triumph, sales enough for first month's rent on a studio loft downtown. Joshua's name etched in local arts rags as the voice of hidden hearts. Alex quit Windy City Wheels, the boss's side eye after the scene, too pointed to ignore, and pivoted to freelance mechanics, his hands grease-blackened but spirit unbowed. They moved in together officially, a one-bedroom walk-up above a taqueria on Monroe Street, walls soon papered in Joshua's prints and Alex's salvaged road maps. Mornings became ritual. Coffee brewed strong as resolve, Alex's lips brushing Joshua's temple as he murmured, "Morning, artist." Afternoons, Joshua at the easel, Alex wrenching on neighbors' jalopies in the alley. Evenings theirs, grilled corn from the market, beers on the fire escape, watching thunderstorms roll in like old adversaries turned friends. Scars lingered, of course. Alex's weekly calls home, tense with his dad's sullen silences, thawing slow under his mom's persistent care packages of flan and forgiveness pleas. Carlos faded to echoes, a mutual unfollow, a closure email Alex read aloud one night, voice steady. No regrets, just growth. Joshua's doubts ebbed, watered by consistency. He started a series, detours, canvases of bent highways and lovers at crossroads, selling to out-of-towners who saw their own stories in the strokes. Alex posed for one, shirtless against a rusting pickup, his gaze direct as a dashboard confessional, vulnerability bared like the tattoo on his chest. "This one's us," Joshua said, paint-flecked fingers tracing the lines. The crash, the choice, the keep going. Fall brought harvest fairs and football Fridays, Springfield shrugging into its flannel-clad rhythm. They tailgate a high school game, Joshua's alma mater, ghosts of crushes past milling in the bleachers, sharing a flask of bourbon under star-pricked skies. "Remember our first merge?" Alex teased, nuzzling Joshua's neck amid cheers. "Thought I'd lose you to the semis." Joshua chuckled, pulling him closer. "Nah, you're my true north." The words, once borrowed from Alex's ink, now anchored them both. Winter whispered warnings, though, Alex's dad worsening. A hospital bed in Milwaukee calling like a siren's dirge. The chemo failed, metastasis creeping like kudzu, and family fractures reopened. "He wants to see you." Alex's mom pled over speaker, her voice a tapestry of love and ache. "Before, to make peace." Alex wavered, the pull inexorable, but this time, Joshua went too, hand in Alex's on the drive north, a united front against the cold. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and wilted carnations, Mr. Rivera shrunken under starched sheets, eyes sunken but sharp. "Heard about you," he grunted at Joshua, voice gravel from the tubes. No warmth, but no venom, a start. Alex knelt by the bed, words halting. "Dad, this is him. The one. Not a face." Silence stretched, taut as 4 lines, then a nod, feeble. "Treat him right, Mijo, or I'll haunt you." Laughter cracked the ice, tentative, and in that frail grip of hands, father-son, lover-lover, humanity bloomed, messy and profound. Mr. Rivera passed in March, under a sky soft as prayer, funeral a blend of Catholic rites and quiet queer solidarity. Carlos even there, suit somber, offering a handshake to Joshua that held no thorns. "Take care of him," he said, and meant it. Alex grieved fierce, nights curled into Joshua's side, sobs muffled in pillows, but dawn brought resolve. They scattered ashes at Lake Michigan's edge, toes in the surf, toasting with stolen flasks, to detours that lead home. Spring 2026 found them packing boxes, Chicago beckoning with a gallery contract for Joshua and a mechanic shop gig for Alex, Logan Square lofts, pride flags fluttering from fire escapes. The move was chaos. U-Haul stuffed with canvases and toolboxes, a playlist of road trip anthems blaring as they crossed state lines. "Nervous?" Alex asked, hand on Joshua's knee at the toll booth. "Terrified," Joshua admitted, grinning through it. "But with you, worth the risk." The city swallowed them whole. Hustle of L trains, spice of street vendors, anonymity that felt like grace. They found rhythm in the grind. Joshua's openings drawing crowds that gasped at his truths, Alex wrenching on hybrids by day, dancing salsa by night in dimly lit clubs where hands stayed clasped, unhidden. Conflicts arose, sure. Joshua's imposter syndrome flaring at critiques, Alex's grief spiking on anniversaries, but they navigated as a team, therapy sessions in a Pilsen walk-in becoming their maintenance lane. One August eve, atop a Wrigleyville rooftop, skyline aglow with Cubs fireworks. Alex dropped to one knee, not with a ring from panic, but a simple silver band etched with a compass rose. "No ultimatums, no ghosts," he said, voice steady as steel. "Just us, forever on the road. Marry me, Josh." Tears blurred the bursts of red and gold as Joshua hauled him up, kiss sealing the yes. "Hell yeah," to the end of the line. Years blurred into legacy. A wedding in Grant Park, cherry blossoms defiant against rain. A daughter adopted at 30, her laughter echoing in their brownstone. Joshua's monograph in MoMA stacks, Alex's shop a haven for queer mechanics. They aged into silver at the temples, wrinkles mapping miles, but the spark endured, stolen glances over breakfast, hands intertwined on long drives back to Springfield for family reunions, where Mr. Rivera's grave bloomed with wildflowers. In the end, love wasn't the absence of wrecks, but the grace to steer through them. Joshua learned that on a rain-slicked highway, in the arms of a man who chose him, not despite the storms, but because of them. And in America's heartland sprawl, where roads forked endless, they found their way home. Together, unbroken, human as the dawn.